Because the only time that I would see my dad come home from work before I came home from school was, I think, twice a year when he had to go to what we called quals or qualifications, where you have to prove that you can shoot straight for the FBI. And he would always be there cleaning guns and teaching me how to handle them properly and everything like that. I think that it's not an option of whether or not this conversation includes gun owners. It does include gun owners, and it has to. There are millions of gun owners who do support stronger measures, like my father, that the NRA does not speak for. But we need them to show up with us proactively every year at state legislatures to negate that talking point of the NRA that says that they speak for all gun owners and all this other stuff, because that's just not true. It's just that the silent majority of gun owners who do support gun laws aren't speaking out enough about it. And honestly, at this point, given what we all know is happening in this country with gun violence, if you're silent, you're an accomplice or you're complacent, effectively. Mm-hmm. So we need more people to be speaking out about it. And on the topic of suicide, I don't agree that there is any amount of mental health funding that is going to be able to stop a person like the shooter at my high school in the first place, because I think it actually would also do a lot of harm. I've met students, for example, when I've gone to different schools that said, I went to my guidance counselor and I care about mental health, right? I went to my guidance counselor and I asked them, I said, I'm struggling with anxiety and depression. Can you get me help or whatever? And they said that they got put on a list of potential school shooters, right?
Wow.
That is what I'm trying to avoid. That is why I don't like those conversations around mental health, because I do agree that we need to fund mental health more, especially for our rural communities where the vast majority of gun suicides are happening, especially for our young boys who are committing suicide a lot. And young girls too. It's just that the boys commit suicide they tend to do it with guns a lot more. We need to have those conversations. We need to fund mental health care more, but I don't want it being used as a scapegoat for white supremacists. When we just don't want to confront the fact that we have a severe problem with white supremacy in this country and systemic racism that needs to be addressed. And I don't want it being used to stigmatize mental health more. I'm mentally ill. I have PTSD from the shooting and the activism afterwards. I'm far more likely to be the victim of gun violence by my own fruition than the perpetrator.
Because we're talking about suicide, I just want to put this out there that if you or someone needs help, there is a suicide prevention line. You can call that by dialing 988. Just an important note there. Do you have everyone you need in this movement right now? And I'm thinking, for example, of young people of color, some of whom have advocated for a greater voice in this national debate around gun violence, with the idea that they are the most affected by this epidemic of gun violence.
100%. And I think, unfortunately, we don't need more of them in the movement because they're already in the movement. They have been the movement from the beginning. Unfortunately, we have a lot of activists in this country because activism is not voluntary. It's for many of the most affected by this that we've worked with on the ground with programs like Life Camp in New York City, with Live Free in Oakland, California, and many, many other groups of these organizations. Unfortunately, people have had to become super involved in them. So I don't think it's so much a question of how do we get more people involved. They're involved. It's a matter of how do we make sure that we're uplifting those people and broadening the spotlight so that when something happens like happens in Parkland, it's not, let's just make sure that places that look like Parkland are safer. It's let's understand that if Parkland is safe, but Liberty City in South Florida, which is neighborhood basically in Miami, is not safe, neither of our communities are safe. None of us are safe until no kid or person of any age has to live in fear of gun violence in any community. The other thing that March for Our Lives has done as well is we've worked with a lot of those students from around the country. One of the first things that students did is they went and met up with the brave youth leaders of St. Sabina that do work on the south and west side of Chicago at interrupting violence from this Catholic church. And we met with them and talked with them. We went to Chicago and met with them, the students did. And then they came to Parkland and met with us. And now a lot of those people that we originally worked with, one of them in particular, Trevon Bosley, has been involved with the organization for the past 5 years and now is on the board of the organization. And we've also done that around the country as well with other students too. But it's always a delicate balance because we want to make sure that those students are empowered and understand that they have a place in this organization and that this organization, isn't tokenizing them, but really giving them the power that they deserve and should have had from the beginning.